Hello, and welcome to the start of a new adventure. This is the beginning of a new series going to be centered around my making a modern walking skirt. Now I'm calling this a modern walking skirt based off of its intended function of walking around and being rambunctious, not based off of any historical silhouette. The only thing it has in common there is probably going to be its length. Full disclaimer, I'm a relative beginner to sewing. I've made maybe one skirt as a kid and a couple of mini quilts, but not much since then. So if you know what you're doing, please bear with my potentially many mistakes. If you're also a beginner, that's awesome, but keep in mind that I tend to be overly ambitious and I learn hands-on skills really fast, so I'm not exactly the good example of a beginner. The important thing when you're a beginner or at any stage in learning any kind of new skill is putting in the effort to learn, patience, and practice. So, disclaimer made. Alright, so this video is going to follow my first foray into pattern making. Me being me, despite being a beginner, I decided I wanted to make and design my own pattern instead of using somebody else's pattern, which is just another level of adventure. I know next to nothing about pattern drafting other than maybe some videos that I've watched on YouTube. Anybody who's lived with me or knows me super well knows that I wander around my house wrapped in a fleece blanket. I do this throughout the year, yes, even in summer. It's just my thing. It's some people have their favorite pair of PJ bottoms. I wear my blanket skirt. But the problem is it's not a real garment. It's a blanket that I've tucked in. And I can't really wear it outside. So I want a blanket skirt, or something like a blanket skirt, that is a real garment. The most important thing is mobility. It is a walking skirt after all. I want to walk, run, romp, all of the above in said skirt. So to that end, I need to have something that's full enough that it doesn't inhibit my leg movement. I want it to be mid-calf length because I don't want it to be too high, because then walking outside in winter, cold breezes, it's a skirt. I want it to be warm in winter. I don't want it to be longer than ankle length because stairs. It's really easy to trip over that much fabric on the stairs. And lastly, because I want it to have a good twirl, because a full long skirt that doesn't have a twirl is just a sad thing. To get the base measurements from which I get the shape of the skirt from, I took up my widest possible stride stance and then I measured around so that I had a minimum fullness measurement to go off of. There's no way I'm going to get this pattern right, none at all, on my first try, or even maybe my fifth try. So I'm going to be making miniature paper mock-ups to test my designs out in paper to get the shape and the form in paper before I actually try to make a mock-up out of fabric. So let's get into it. For my first mock-up, I decided to split the skirt up into 8 equal panels so they're the exact same panel. I quickly realized that this smaller scale was still too cumbersome and switched to approximately a 1" to 2mm scale for subsequent mock-ups. I'm not enamored of this one, so time to try again. This time I chose to make a 10-paneled skirt with unequal widths. I based the spacing off of what I thought would be flattering on my body, so the largest panel is in the front, followed by 2 of the narrow panels on either side of that, and 2 slightly wider panels, and that makes up the front half, and then the back half of the skirt. I accidentally used double the waist measurement for the same length, so the proportions are way off. Also, I want the sections of the hem for each panel to be more similar. Time to try again. Because each of the pattern pieces I make are completely symmetrical, I include a center line on which that I can fold and cut out the piece to make it as symmetrical as possible. I also make sure to mark this center line down when I'm tracing the pattern pieces I've made so that I can cut those out the same way. Now it's time to assemble it. I was worried because the paper was nearly laying flat at the hem that if I did twirl, it would fly up and show things I'd rather leave covered. So I decided to make one with less fullness. The one with less fullness is still above the minimum measurement for fullness that I originally came up with. I really like the portions of the skirt that's less full, so that's the one I decided to scale up into a real pattern to use as my first pattern for my fabric mock. For the bottom curve of the panel, I made a makeshift compass using a flexible measuring tape. To convert the pattern, I measured the miniature pattern as precisely as I could and then scaled it up using my conversion. No, the easiest conversions to use are one-to-one conversions, so like if you did 1 inch to 1 centimeter, but 1 centimeter is still a larger scale and I didn't want to initially start off with that scale, so I used a weird scale. For pattern paper, I am using wrapping paper that I got on deep discount right after Christmas. It has these inch squares on the back, which really help with transferring the pattern and making sure everything is even and symmetrical. I measured the width at certain lengths from the waistline, divided by half, and marked those points from the center line of my panel. And then I freehanded between those points. Time to fold it and cut it out. And repeat for the other two types of panels. I think it's cool to see the miniature pattern and how it's scaled up so beautifully.